Our, yeah, there
Did
we
Juan
go.
say yes?
Pretty sure he said yes, sure.
Okay, can you better now?
Yeah, I think that's a little better. Hi, everybody. I apologize for this late start and for whatever's going on. We have several dozen people who are registered, and we're not quite sure if they're having troubles getting in or what. But we'll reach back out after this and make sure that they get the opportunity to hear from you all, because we are. Well, it's been a little over a year since we've started this journey together. I know. Time is hard to register during the pandemic, but one of the ways we measure is in commissions, I think. And so over this last year, we've had the great opportunity to work with all of you all, to hear you on these Zoom calls, share pieces of your work. And in the last several days, we've had these plays start coming in near final, who knows what final means, but in complete, of some sense, form. And it's so exciting. We have a few folks who aren't able to join us today, but who are around the country, who are back into various kinds of work. I'm really proud to be saying that I'm on this call from First Stage. We're next door. There's a sold out performance of Secret Things. We started this commission as a way to come together when we couldn't be together. And it really means a lot, I think, to do this final Zoom event while we are coming together just on the other side of that wall again. So thank you all. It brings me great joy and hope to know that we will be going from a Zoom performance and Zoom gathering to eventually someday seeing these pieces on a stage in a room with people again, and how exciting that is for me. I'm going to turn things over to my partner in crime here, who has aged many years during this pandemic, trying to wrangle 11 different solo artists in the commissions, and has done just tireless work. So a great big thank you to Deirdre Starnes, our Associate Artistic Director here at First Stage. And Dee, it's all yours.
Hello, friends. Our three friends that were able to join us today. We're excited to have you, and the show must go on. That is our mantra, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to give you the best of what we have. Juan, stop. I have a little sizzle reel to kind of help us get a little taste of the first looks that we had throughout this year with our artist. And I am going to play that for you now. Make you bigger. Where are you? There you are. All right. Can everyone see that?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Here we go.
Do I need to say something about the piece? I don't know if I need to say something about the piece. The piece kind of speaks for itself. And that's how I felt for a long time. Hidden, ashamed, alone. And unfortunately, we, Black men, have no active means of coping with these feelings and emotions. We aren't privileged, so I couldn't buy a gun and shoot something up at random.
Hi everyone, I'm Natsu. I'm not at all a performer.
Oh great, I'm spotlighted. All right, awesome. Hola, me llamo Juan Francisco Villa, and I'm looking for my father. His name is Francisco Jose Villa. He goes by Pancho, Paco, or Pacho Villa. Pancho, Paco, or Pacho Villa? No? Everyone in Bogota has been extremely helpful in my grand return to the motherland until now.
My piece is called Stay, a show about why we run. I wasn't bouncing, you were stealing the covers. Either way, you were being annoying. Is that why you pushed me off the bed? I didn't push you off the bed. Well, maybe I did. Did I happen to call you a baby too? You did. I remember because I jumped back on the bed ready to attack you with my pillow, and you were already asleep, and you had your back to me facing Nana's closet that was filled with board games and all her dresses from the 60s, and I got real close to you, and just before I whacked you with my pillow, you let out one of your monster snores. I'm surprised it didn't wake up the whole house. It sounded like a vacuum dying. Well,
I'm nervous in a good way. I try to help the girl woman mama who drags her baby by the arm. You're gonna pull that baby's arm out of the socket, I say. I knew her daddy and her brother before they were murdered. I sent her baby daddy away from mugging the church lady and making me chase him. I finally caught him when he slipped in dog shit. That girl woman mama rolls her eyes at me now with zero fucks given for my child rearing tips. My pain, my heartbreak, my guilt, my fault, my beat.
Hey everyone. Oh, okay, yeah, I'm spotlighted now. Okay. But sometimes I wonder if I peaked too early, whether or not I showed up too late, and asking myself how I even got here. Can I even claim with any kind of certainty that I feel destined to be here? But I am here. I did it. I took the leap. I tried. I really did. And that's it right there, right? I get invested. I get too invested. But what happens when you get too invested in potential? Blinded from seeing things as they are? Therein lies the complexity in being hopeful. Having faith. You have to rely on things that you can't see. And it's so easy to get burned by that.
Thanks, y'all, for having me. It's awesome to be here.
Now welcome everybody to the show about me. Welcome everybody, now go ahead, take your seat. Relax in front of your TV, cause believe me, oh, you are in for a treat. You see, you ain't never seen a daytime show like this. You ain't never seen a kid like me do this.
This piece, it's called At the Corner Where Love Lives. So here we go. Skull is pretty thick. I found out because of an accident I suffered in tech 11 years before. Doctor told me I had a pretty thick skull. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that to this day, whether that's a good thing or not. I knew my face was partially broken when I touched it and bones slid upward. A small pool of blood began to form where I was standing, then another as I moved in a different direction. Yeah, it was bad. Imagine your life changing like that in less than 30 seconds. Imagine coming out of your physical being and your physical surroundings in a few nanoseconds.
It's a pleasure to be here with all of you tonight. You want the job or not? Sí quiero. I want job. What time you pick us up? So no, you don't want the job. I could have brought somebody else. I need to know time. Mija, my daughter babysitter. La señora behind me whispers. Regresamos a las 3:30, señora. Oh, muchas gracias. Thank you, señora. Muchas gracias. 3:30. Gracias. Okay, 3:30. Gracias. I was squished. En van. Estábamos bien apretados. So many men and women. Una chiquita flaquita. A girl probably 18 years old. Had to sit on a man's lap. Because she was last and no more room. Pobrecita, estaba tan incómoda. She no likes sitting on his lap. Ese estúpido, haciendo bullas con ella en sus piernas. Hey.
Hey, everybody.
To write something means to will it into existence, that it's there by design, right?
The idea that there is something flowing through me that is against my will, something that cannot be extracted no matter how deeply excavated. I was floored when I heard the idea of epigenetics explained to me. That, you know, we inherit our parents' DNA, right? But our DNA is made up of experiences, essentially. Everything we experience rewires us down to a cellular level.
Out the gate, the youngest of 8 acclimates to always being last in line, first to wait, reversed the fate, and became a rough draft on a path that would persevere, built to last. At 6'3", he used to be a tower man. He was power man. Luke Cage with the farmer's tan. He took my mama's hand, and she made him an honest man. Now his focus is on the promised land. You understand, son of a preacher man. It's a part of who I am, but Jim's journey to God was not a part of the plan. Growing up in the degradation of segregation, Jim Crow dealt a blow to Jim's whole education. Had tons of fun, from thugs with guns to drugs and drums to hugs, from sunset to sunrise to drum set. Had Jim testing how funky the drums get.
And there we have it. Yay, you guys. Woo!
Wow, wow, wow. That gave me shivers to see
I
them all
know.
together to see you all together next to each other. What voices, what amazing journeys. Thank you all. So we have a little bit of we're going to take this opportunity to just talk a little bit about this last year, the experience of putting these works together. I know that we have our limited live audience with us tonight, but that just means that your questions will probably get asked if you want to send them in. But Dee and I will start with the group. Dee, do you want to lead us off?
Yes. Oh, wow. Okay. I'm in my feelings right now, and I'm feeling some kind of way. Like Alex said, because this was the first time I actually watched it without looking for glitches and where the sound was too low and things like that. So to really see you back to back like that has just been, it was just such a great experience for me to like pull back and just see your faces and see you all together. And so I wanted to start with Juan, because Juan has done a festival for us before. He's done the Logan Festival before. And Juan, I wanted to find out from you if this process in creating, or as you're continuing to create and develop your new piece, is it different or the same, or are there some kind of central points that you were holding on to from your last experience with us?
Able to hear me okay?
We gotcha.
Yeah, we're coming up on in 2022, it'll be 10 years since we started performing it, Alex and I. And I get hyper aware of how he's aged and I've not.
Your hair got longer and longer.
It just, yeah,
not grayer, just longer.
No, but it makes me. I'm such a nostalgic person. It's just, I'm a big cheese ball, and I have a habit of looking back too much in my life, and I made a choice a few years ago to not look back so much. And with developing this solo piece, Finding Pancho, I'm forced to do it, and forced in the sense of being commissioned to do it. And any artist will tell you deadlines are the best way to not to get the work done, but to at least have the energy start, the anxiety of I need to say this thing and share this story. And so far this time, it's been a lot harder. At least so far for me, it's not been so much of the process of as many morning pages as how I started Empanada. I don't feel as if it's a life or death situation, and yet I avoid writing it because it feels like a life or death situation. And so that's what's been different so far. And also my career has been busier. Like back then I was like, I just need to do this. I just finished a 2-year program. Someone just passed away. I need to write about it. And this time, no, things are pretty great. Like I can't complain much. And yet there's this like thing inside of me that pains me, and I just want to like explore it. And also something that I want to celebrate. I do want to celebrate my father. I do want to celebrate other male influences in my life. I do want to celebrate my mom. And because when I do that I don't know, I just look at my life differently. There's a deeper appreciation. And watching the reel in the little bit from each person, I was just like mesmerized. I was just like, I was emotional. I was so emotional watching it, just those little pieces and the style and the stuff. And I'm like, oh, I got to get back in there and continue writing. It's so inspiring.
Oh, I love
Thank you,
that.
Ron. Yeah.
Love that. Yeah, absolutely. That's how I felt too. As you know, as I mentioned at the start of this, that you know we have our first show back in person going right now, but I watch that reel and I think, oh, there's so much work to be created. There's so much to do here, you know, and it's really, really exciting. Dee, I'm going to go off script a little bit. This isn't one of the questions we talked about, but just hearing Juan talk and recognizing this, I'm curious, this question for all of our artists. You know, of course, we started these commissions when started talking about these commissions when the pandemic first started. And we knew that we were asking folks to create in you know, when they couldn't come together, but we really had no sense of what the world was going to look and feel like over that period between then and now. And I'm curious for all of you, either in content or just in process, how the last, you know, the world that we've been living in for the last 18 months has influenced your work or influenced the way you go about your work, and whether you've been conscious of that or not, whether that's something you've been really thinking about or whether that's just came organic, you know, sort of unconsciously. I guess. Anybody? Yeah, Frank.
It's been conscious and unconscious on my part. I know that like writing, like starting and writing and, you know, writing out the drafts by hand, my very, very first draft. And then I started to type things up and things kept changing by the day, life stuff and the narrative of my piece. And then I had to learn how to embrace the non-linear narrative I created in the script. And that was thanks to you, Alex and Dee, because I was so focused on this one thing. And then I said, okay, it's about to do some more. So it became like various aspects of my life in terms of where I am. And then I hit, like, you know, after my first look, I hit like some really bad writer's block for a number of months. I felt stuck. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know how. I felt frozen. And then I had to keep coming back to my subject of the piece. And then, like, within a month, back in September, 2 major life events happened where I lost a relative from both sides of my family, each side of my family, within a month. And so one of whom I was very close to, and the other one I knew of, but I talked to, but I wasn't very close to. But it still affected me the same way. And those events will, you know, now have to figure into the play somehow. And it's been quite a bit, just trying to put things together and you know, the world around us and seeing everyone in public for the first time, like getting back into that groove, you know, from being in isolation for so long and going to the theater, even, you know, just seeing friends I haven't seen in a couple of years, but it felt like no real time had passed because of social media and things. Like I saw Dee for the first time at Amen Corner for the first time in, you know, since pre-pandemic, I believe. So it's just been, you know, just all of these things that I'm trying to incorporate into the piece and see where that takes me.
Thank you, Frank. Yeah, Jasmine, please.
I hear that question and like different parts of my brain fire off because when we were commissioned, I was stuck in a house with two beautiful children whom I love with all of my life. I would give all of my life for theirs. And it was impossible to write. It was really hard. So like the beginning process was really tricky, but I found a way and I felt really good about, that beginning part of the process. And then now that they've gone back to school and they're physically somewhere else, it's been very helpful for me to like do a lot of the seated work that I need to in researching and reading and thinking. But I would say that the pandemic also offered me an opportunity that I did not have before, or maybe I could have had just phone conversations, but because everyone was on Zoom, a large part of my time this year has been spent interviewing working people. And so like, I've interviewed some professors in Texas and in some economists in the East Coast and some scientists down south, like people who would connect me with their friends who it didn't matter where they were. And I got to see all these people on Zoom or on the phone, but that was really lovely in that sense of like, oh my gosh, a large part of my world has opened up as a result of the Zoom world in a more international way in some ways. But for this process, for writing this piece, it was really cool to be able to feel connected to people I'd never met before, talking about really intimate things around your treatment as a person, as a working person. And it was all because everyone was on Zoom. And so that was like a positive that came out of, at least from my research process.
Yeah, it's hard to remember a world before Zoom, isn't it?
It really is.
Juan and Natsu, anything that you want to add about the way in which the pandemic or the world around us has influenced either your work or how you went about your work? Natsu, I know you've been, yeah, please.
So when, it's interesting because when you initially talked to me about this commission, my response was, I will write it, but I won't perform it. Just
I remember that.
I don't perform. I'm in my profession for a reason. So I have this great fear of performing, and I don't perform, and I always felt like, well, the division of labor in theater exists for a reason, and I wouldn't pay myself to perform. But since the beginning of the pandemic, I've been making a lot of work on my desk with a camera and with no choice other than to have myself. I've been performing a lot of things just with my hands, like manipulating objects and making the objects. And so I kind of got a little comfortable just like having my hands as performers. And then I actually performed in a piece in March in a different piece. That was a live stream performance that I did from Okinawa, Japan. I actually appeared on camera. And having done a first look, and I didn't know how to present the work because my piece is very visual and reading the script doesn't do much, and I wasn't going to perform anyway. And Dee suggested, why don't you make a little video? And so when I made the video, I started thinking, well, maybe this is, I still may not perform, but maybe this is for a different kind of performer. So my idea about performance and what it means to what skills one brings to performance has changed a lot.
That's great. Wonderful. And yeah, I was mesmerized, Natsu, at how it just seemed the cards laid out ever so perfectly. And like a magician, you shouldn't reveal your secret, but it was just really captivating every time I watched that part of the video, how it lines up. And so I really I have a desire to see how that plays out because it is about chance. And if we have learned nothing in this past few years, it feels like it's that nothing is certain. and nothing is what it seems, and that the ridiculous becomes the possible. So I really want to see yours, because yours is based on chance and it's based on game. So I'm very interested in seeing it. I have a question for Frank, and you said this. You are a very renowned DC and outside of DC actor. You've been on stage for, well, what did you confess to my daughter? You met her when you were 20, so at least 20 some odd years. What was it like for you? Because you did not prize yourself a writer, and that was something that you shared with Alex and I, but it was also something that Colleen, who couldn't be with us today, was pushing you toward. What is it like to go from being an actor to then writing something that flows from the actor?
It's a entirely new experience for me. It's something I never thought I would do, even though I always love watching others solo work and other solo artists. I grew up watching Whoopi do it and Anna Deavere Smith do it, and I love them both so much. But I never thought I would do it. I'm so used to performing other playwrights' words and bringing them to life, and it let me know how deeply personal it could be. I have no problem or no qualms about being vulnerable or vulnerability or sharing that. I tend to be very reticent about it. I tend to be very reserved with it. But having, that flow from me and putting that out there into the world and hoping, or if not, if anyone can connect with it, it's been a very, it's actually taken me to a newer level as an actor in a way, in terms of how my work is going to be informed if I'm performing my own work or someone else's. It's been very informative, and it's been like a deepening of the evolution of the artist for me. It's been very much that, and this, as being an actor who thrives on challenge, and I love being challenged. This was very much, this was I'd say, outside of acting, this is, in terms of artistry, this has probably been the most challenging experience I've had thus far. And as the days pass, rewarding as well, because I know that it's something that I have to share with folks. And but this definitely been a whole new experience for me.
Thank you.
I hope a positive one, ultimately.
Oh.
I wanted to take the time to welcome Debbie and Kathy. I do want you all to know, Kathy, you look great. Looks like you got your hair all done and you've got on your jewelry, and she is ready for her artist. Kathy has followed you all, and Debbie, all of our friends on here today have been following you all for this past year. So it's really wonderful to see them. Alex, may I ask Jasmine a question?
Please do.
Jasmine, your work is so rooted in the people, and equality and things of that nature. And you found yourself dealing with a topic that also touches the middle class as well. So I wanted to hear from you, what has your research process been like? If you want to share with everyone what you're trying to tackle in your piece, because your piece is a very, very much an activist piece. And it's the only one we have where it is specifically an activist piece and can be used to educate people about what's going on in the world, and bring people who are responsible for it to tears and shame, as they should. But talk to us a little bit about your research process, the difference between those who aren't given voices and those you would think have voices, and how you found that intersection.
You know, I think that the biggest constant reminder that I had throughout the year, I'm a very opinionated person. I always thought I wasn't. I always thought I was like that girl that people would just roll over and everything's fine because I'm a good Catholic girl and I'll help, and I have a lot of Catholic guilt, and I'm not gonna have a loud voice in the room, and that's really changed over the years. And because of my struggles as an artist, and watching my family struggle, you know, an immigrant family, making their way in this country, I have really strong feelings about the value of people. I just think that people matter. And it makes me angry when people act as if some people are more important than other people, because that's not true. Everyone is important. Everyone should be loved. Everyone should have somewhere to sleep. Everyone should get to eat good food. Everyone should feel loved. And we don't live in a country or a society that actually honors those values very well. And when I was working on this piece, I had to keep like calming that activist, like that kind of raging voice that would be like, you know, trying to, because what I really wanted to do was keep asking the questions. And when I returned to the questions of you know, how are you treated at work, and do you feel valued at work, or in what ways do you feel valued and what ways do you not feel valued? How do people treat other people in your job? You know, when I was asking these questions, I kept getting surprised by things. So I've been trying to affect my writing and not making the decisions for the audience, but I'm trying to like ask those questions so that the audience could maybe be surprised by something that comes straight from the person's mouth. So the pieces, although I've written it, it is very much almost like a documentary in that sense, is that it's like in Anna Deavere Smith's style of interviewing and keeping true to what the person has said. I've not made any changes to what people have said. I might have just shortened something or edited, you know, made a long conversation shorter, but I really want to honor what people are saying. And my desire is not to like put words in people's mouths or like to force my view on anyone, because I just think that like if you just hear people's stories, you'll be shocked because people shouldn't be treated that way. You'll feel like that doesn't seem right, because we've all grown up thinking that you go to school, you go to college, you get a degree, you get a job, you know, you get some benefits, you can have some, you know, if you get sick, you should be able to stay home with your family. And everyone's realizing that in this gig economy, that is not really true for a lot of people anymore, but people still think it's obviously true for this elite professionalist class, but it's not even that true up in the elite professional class. And the more I ask questions, the more things are revealed. And I'm trying to put that into the writing so that I'm not just pushing my views on people, because I do feel really strongly. I'm very much, I think that humanity matters. I think that people matter. And ultimately, I want the piece to like move someone's heart to say, gosh, you know, what are we going to do about that? What can I do about that? How can I be a part of helping my peers in my workplace feel valued? Or how should I vote? How could I vote so that people are recognized as valuable rather than cogs in a machine? You know, where do I put my effort? What products do I buy? How do they treat those workers? I would love for those questions to come as a result of experiencing the show for people, that an audience member might feel a sense like they are partly responsible for the care of others. Trying,
Absolutely beautiful.
Trying to not get too much on a stump and tell you what to think.
No, but I think that segues in really well to a question I had for the whole group, which is, of course, that we've all in this time where we weren't able to do our work, been engaged in conversations about what role the theater has and what kind of work should be on our stages. And I wonder if you all might talk a little bit about how you experienced solo work in that way, what the sort of unique power of solo work is, and how and, you know, anything that you've discovered or reasons why you think that this is work that we do need to make sure is out there for folks as we return into live theater. Frank, yeah. Oh, Frank, you're muted.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It made me realize how extremely personal it is. Even though you might be telling someone else's story, at times it's extremely personal, and with that, it offers an opportunity for connection with other folks. And that's the main thing I think I've realized, you know, with seeing so much solo theater and then now having undertaken this challenge for myself, that it's like, yeah, it's really personal, and yet you're offering a chance for someone else to connect with you if they want to. And that's to me, I mean, that's the reason why I'm an actor, is because I just wanted to connect with people. I wanted to communicate with people. That was it. And that's, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I gotta jump on that and say that I love what you said, Frank, because it is so personal. And because it's so personal, the fact that First Stage cast this net out and scooped up this group of BIPOC artists and allowed us a space and a place to dig in and try to put words on a page and tell a story that hadn't been told before. For me, that's what I think is really incredible about this commission, is that they now exist in whatever form they might be. 11 very different stories, as that sizzle reel showed us, that didn't exist before, and they're not in the canon. They're not the thing you're seeing in the regional theater, touring, whatever. So it's like, to me, it's so cool, because just watching the sizzle reel, all of our pieces are so different. And I just was like, wow, you know, that didn't exist before. And these stories are really unique to 2020, 2021 right now. And how beautiful to get to document them and to get them, put them on paper, and then hopefully one day perform them, so that our voices can also be recognized as important, along with all of those shows that are produced every year. They get 5 productions of the same damn show in a bunch of different theater houses around the country. And you're like, do I really want to see that show again, when there are all these other cool stories to hear? So I really think that we've come to a place in our country that we need to recognize the multiplicity of voices and raise those voices, and there's an audience for it. So thank you for that opportunity to like spend some time on cultivating a voice that I think for many of us might have been floating and wanting to, we're going to do that one day. We're going to get to that, but you guys helped us get to it. And that's really important. Thank you.
Thank you.
Juan,
Hi.
Natsu, anything you want to share about solo work and its place as we reopen our theaters?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that, you know, because everyone has to balance a budget, and so I'm hoping that coming out of the pandemic, that there is an appreciation or a reemergence of solo work, because it is cost effective. And now, is it an art form that is widely accepted by your average theater going audience? I don't think so, but I'm hoping that it does become that. I mean, Christina Wong has hers and New York Theater Workshop, which I think you can stream at this final week. It just opens it up so much. And also just with everything Jasmine said, it makes me think of just how politics has just gotten really good on the macro level, just with local voting, and you all did such a great job of balancing artists that are outside of DC and then people who are local, and a nice dialogue between all the pieces. And I'm always wanting to see people's solo work. Like, it's one of my favorite things to do, and because it is personal. I mean, and I I always lauded that. I was always Luis Alfaro was maybe the first person I saw live, and I was just like, and he was reading off the page, but I was still like blown away by just the details and how he phrases things. And that's again what I got from the reel. Just it's just so fascinating, just the specificity of a story. And with the Zoom, it was just people talking. You know, there was no big quote unquote performative aspect. And it just reminds me that storytelling at its core just will transcend time.
Thank you. Thank you. We probably have time for, oh yeah, Natsu, please.
So I'm having two very different but parallel experiences surrounding solo work this pandemic. Because in addition to writing this piece, my own solo piece, I'm also directing a solo piece by Somayani 24 for Mosaic. It's his writing and his performance, and I'm the director designer. And it's really been amazing to be working on my own solo piece and working on somebody else's, because it's such a intimate experience, like everybody said, even if it contains, well, some pieces are very autobiographical and mine's a lot of historical. But I think just in that you're the only performer on stage, and like the rules change, you know, and you can't have an 8-hour day because you're the only one, right? And when you are the writer, when somebody's writer, performer, and then you have a director, like who makes choices about, like, it's a really interesting dynamic that I hadn't worked on solo work before beyond things that I did in graduate school. So I'm rethinking how relationships and emotions work in the process. And also at the same time, I'm thinking about, I'm rethinking the danger of empathy and embodiment in theater. I feel like in solo pieces, things hit the audience in a more direct way for some reason. It's, you're seeing someone experience something, a single person experience something from beginning to end. You know, it's not a scene created by multiple, like shared, and I feel like there's gravity to it, and I actually kind of worry about that, about my own piece. Like, oh, can I put my audience through this? You know, and some of the scenes that I've written in the since first look, I felt like, oh, maybe I'm being irresponsible. So I don't know.
I think that's amazing what you just said, because, you know, what was going through my head was, just per the question that Alex asked me directly, is, I mean, we all have a solo show narrative that we have going through our head. I'm talking about everyone. I'm not just talking about artists. We have a narrative, especially as we get older, that goes over and over. And the fact that I'm with you that there is a potency, one person's story. I mean, the fact that you're so concerned about, I know it's not autobiographical, but it's just so, it blows my mind that have that much of an effect on people. With my solo play with Empanada, I try to warn people. People get worried because I don't inflict physical violence on myself, but there's very graphic descriptions about things. And it's interesting how many people just don't want to see it because of something that is, you know, mimed or described. But I have no gun. There's no blood squirt. There's no this, that, or the other. But it's just interesting what it does to the head and the heart. Of course, it makes me want to see your piece more. That's just that you're concerned about putting an audience through that.
Well, it's in many different ways, just because, especially because my piece is a game. So one of the like, without going into like really minute details, one of the scenes is framed as a game of Monopoly, but it's called Colony. It's about Japanese colonization of Southeast Asia during World War II. And and I'm thinking it's either the performer plays against herself or invites an audience, but then but can a person put the audience member in the role of that, you know what I mean? So because it's so told through first person, it's a little bit dangerous. I mean, it's not a little bit, it's really dangerous. And I'm
dangerous because of what you think the audience member will do, or they might expose themselves by the choices they make. What is the danger?
Well, can I put an audience member? So you are a Japanese soldier tasked with going to Sumatra, and then you must conquer this area of the country. You know what I mean? Can I make them into a colonizer? But the story that's told is that the Japanese individual soldiers believed that they were liberating South Asia, whereas the Allied forces believed that they were colonizing. You know, so there are all these different narratives, but can I put someone in a position where this person might be inflicting insinuated violence against the local population?
Yeah, wow. Oh, well, I
That
want
is
to.
an important question. I just want to respond to that because I have a young son who likes to game. He likes playing games, table games, and card games. And there are a lot of games that are about colonizing that are geared towards little boys. And I'm like, what is this game? And I have sat many times thinking, who are building these games? And there's like nobody overseeing like the kind of messaging that's happening in this game playing that's happening, the kind of responsibility that we have as designers, that we design something and put it out into the public, whether that's a show where you're taking that question on of, is it how I feel responsible for my audience, to put them in this situation. I feel like we need to have more Natsus in the world designing games, because clearly there are many who don't who don't see that role that they're playing in developing children and people who are just becoming people and becoming into themselves and taking on this mentality of, and now my son kind of doesn't like playing with me because they'd be like, Mom, but I conquered that whole country. And I was like, what about the people who live there, Poppy? Let's free them. And he's like, you're no fun to play with, Mommy. And I'm like, I know, because I'm like feeling bad about the people who were there. Who was there before you put those tanks there, Poppy? Anyway, sorry.
But at the same time, yeah, I think it's so interesting. Thank you for saying that, because I do think there's a connection. I've never been much of a game player. I played a video game the total of like 90 seconds in my life when at like age 10, when I couldn't figure out the controller and I died immediately. But so I've been doing a lot of research on games because of this project, and that one aspect of it, Jasmine, really struck me, and it really made me think about the audience dynamic between a theater world and the game world too. Like in theater world, the audience get to be the good guys, right? Audience get to be the empathetic. You hear the social justice message, and you get to root for the good people, like the good people that are represented on stage. But in the game world, it's not necessarily like, it's not defined like what's good in the game world isn't necessarily good in the world as we think about the world. Yeah. And so I do think about that. I don't know where it goes, but thank you.
Yeah. I saw Kathy's question. I wanted to get to it because I think it's a great one. Because when we commissioned 11 artists to make solo work, Obviously, we had some vested interest as we have the Logan Festival for solo performance every year, but also we also know that we do 3 or 4 shows usually a year, solo works a year. So to commission 11 was to know that we were going to create a wealth that would go beyond us. And I wonder if you all might talk a little bit about, Kathy asks, sort of about your dreams as the piece starts to take shape, about what you hope for it, whether that's touring the show or places that you'd like to perform it, or how you pursue as a solo artist your work. And I know certainly Juan and Jasmine, you have different but experiences of taking your work around the country, taking either your storytelling or your solo work around the country. And I wonder if you might just talk about what that circuit's like, or what hopes there are for that, or how some of that works.
Do you want to go? Go ahead, Juan.
I'll let you guys fight this out.
Well, what's really beautiful about this, when I sat in my meeting with Dee and Alex, the very beginning, I was like, I don't want this to be a storytelling piece. I want this to be a theater staged experience, because I am very fortunate that I've been storytelling for a while now, and I do stand on stages and libraries and schools and festivals around the country, and I tell stories, and some of those are personal tales that are like our one-woman show, our one-person shows that are about our lives, and some of those are myths and legends and folk tales and stories from communities. So I have done that, and I miss, that's very like singular, and I really miss the theater team, your director, your writer, your actors, your designers, whether they're costuming or lighting you or whatever it is, that there's a lot of visioning happening together, and there's a development together. And I was very excited to be able to create something that would be a together experience for me. And so I'm hopeful that that I'll be able to tour this or share it around. Because I have a storytelling profession, I expect and hope to, once the piece is really polished, to be able to have that be one of the pieces that I offer, but as a theatrical presentation, which would require theatrical settings, which we don't always have in storytelling world, in a library. But my desire is that it be that people come in and they actually feel transported to that time and place, simply because of a sound cue and a shift in my body and the lighting, or there's a world that we make in theater that I really love and miss. I miss that, all of us miss it, being stuck in a Zoom box. But I'm really excited because the play is connected to my real work. So I'm working with working people in Chicago, and we don't do like professional theater that's supported in any way by a big theater company. This would be closer to like community theater, but it's not community theater because none of them are aspiring actors or people who have a real job and do this as their hobby because they love it. These are working people that are being exploited, and I'm using theater as a technique to fight for their rights. So we're trying to get in front of legislators and in front of the public, the voting public. And so I'm hopeful that there will be some kind of strange merge that can happen where these non-theater people could be invited to a professional theater to see this piece that shares many of their stories, many of our stories, and they can see themselves on a professional stage and see how much their stories matter. Because at this moment, everyone watches the pieces, and when we're in a professional setting, people are like, oh, it's just, that's so hard for you. There's great love, but there's also a sense of that's happening to them. But I know that the kind of pursuit of capitalism is that all of us would be cogs in the wheel. And so in my story, it's happening to professors at universities, and it's happening to scientists or to lawyers, it's happening to professional working Americans. And I would just love to bridge that gap, that people would see these immigrant workers or these Black workers who've come out of prison as just as importantly as they would see that professional who has a university degree, that they would see people, not labels, people. And so I would love for the piece to actually be in a theater, because that would mean, for my team at least, that that in their mind that, oh, important people are watching their stories. And then they can see, oh no, they're just people. We're all just people. So I don't know, I'm really excited about like merging these worlds, this work I do. Juan, sorry, talk too much.
No worries. Yeah, no, I love that. It made me think of just access. And Lin-Manuel Miranda came out and said that there was a fear from the theater world that Hamilton on Disney, the filmed version, means there are not going to be any ticket sales. And he says, that no, it's been the opposite, that since coming out of the pandemic, ticket sales have exploded. And it's been nationally too, just of being able to access a story at a theater that you don't live in, or costs more for an in-person ticket. And I say that just I'd love, if I get ahead of myself, it's a little dangerous in my head, just because with Empanada, I just wanted to just do it. And then things just started landing in its place. And so to perform it, to just get a performance up, because that's where I learned a lot. So the way we did it in New York with Empanada was what ended up being a workshop production. That's the official title, but it was definitely a production. And then we made some changes before a festival, then another solo festival, and then making it to LA at LATC for a proper run, and then back to Chicago for a run. Like that seemed to be like a good catching fire. And so I'd love to do it at First Stage and get some performances in there. Alex and I will learn a lot from that, and then just see where we can get a proper run. I mean, Alex will get me a Broadway run, I'm sure. And that would be, I mean, that's like, to me, honestly, like, it sounds crazy, but it would be running and rep both shows. And or even to the point of the same night, sometimes, or the same day. I say that now, Alex laughs because he's like, but
we're
your
recording
back,
this.
but your hamstring, your back, your hamstring, your hernia, your left ACL, your right ACL. I know, and I'm still gonna do it. But no, because when I the first play I saw coming out of the pandemic was at the Atlantic Theater. It was a play by Ngozi, and it was a 2-person show, but it was like 2 solo shows. Really, it was like a first act, one performer, second act, the other performer. And especially in the second act, there was a performer that I was like mesmerized by. What I was exhausted watching him. There was no way to predict what was going to happen. I went with some friends, and they were exhausted. They've been doing TV and film, and they're just like, I don't think I could memorize that many lines. And I was laughing, and I said, that's the way I feel, which tells me I haven't done it in a while. Because my ego is like, I can do that too. I know I can. I did it once years ago. But it's a reality. Like, it is something I just commend. I have friends who have done solo plays recently, and they're just like, I don't know how you did it. And I was like, well, if it's important for you, you just keep going, and you'll be exhausted. But if the story is important for you, if the response from people is enough to just keep you going, then you just keep doing it. So yeah, perform it at First Stage, then get a proper run it in rep with Empanada, have the theater pay for my massages, and that'll be perfect.
I have to tell this story because it just speaks to what Juan's energy and what he's talking about too. When we were doing the show in Los Angeles at the Los Angeles Theater Center, and if I remember right, it had a Thursday through Sunday run, like our First Stage schedule, and the opportunity came to do off nights at an off-Broadway theater in New York, but the dates they just overlapped. There was no, so I say we, but like I just flew on the plane and told Juan what to do. He had to actually do this. Would get on a plane after the Sunday matinee show in Los Angeles, fly to New York, get into the theater, load in a whole other production, you know, different stage manager, you know, same show, but a whole other team out there. Juan ran that show Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night, got on a plane Thursday morning, flew back to Los Angeles, did the show there Thursday night, and then repeated it again. You know, and it's, you know, one, it's a testament to the insanity of Juan Villa, but also like this weird nature of solo performance where that's possible. Where else is that possible to even try to pull something like that off? It just speaks to this sort of weird individual like medium.
Me. That's
right.
the medium.
the idea that there was a stage somewhere in New York that Juan Villa wasn't on, he wasn't going to let that happen. He's going to get on that plane, get on that stage.
I get Facebook memories about exactly what you just said, and I just look at them. I'm like, oh my god, why would I do it again? Yes, I probably would.
So I've got him down as doing Empanada and the new show and rep together. I love it. Any last questions? I know we're sort of running against the clock here, but Dee, yeah.
We had one more question from
Please.
Eileen. Did you see that one?
Janet, please jump in on it.
There she is.
Do you want me to ask it, Dee?
Yeah, please, Eileen.
Well, I've been writing a little bit, and I'm older, and so my memories and my memoirs are sort of jumbling around in my mind. And I have to say that I absolutely am so excited about all of your shows, and I can't wait to see them. But the question I had is, as I write, I find other things that are connections. And what I'm finding is the reason that that story is so important is because of the connection, not so much the story itself, but what else happened in my life or in the world that triggered that story to have such relevance to me. So I'm wondering, especially in memoir work, like Juan, I think you might have this more than maybe Natsu, because Natsu is creating something new. You're looking back and reliving some of the things that you're talking about. Does that happen to you, and how do you find that? I find that an amazing thing, because I didn't know I knew these things. I didn't know I knew about these connections until I wrote them down, and then they became the reason for that story being so important to in my brain.
Like it turns into a tangent about another story. Like, what do you mean? Like it shifts.
It connects to something else that I didn't even recognize was important. Or they were separate things that didn't relate at all in my younger brain, but in my older brain, I'm seeing that they really they couldn't exist without each other. They were very important together. I could give you an example, but that's not the important thing. The important thing is that as you write, are you finding that you're delving into things that you didn't know were there? That's really what I'm asking. And that's true for all of you.
By far, Eileen, like I if anything, I still have a story that I have not finished, because it starts with on my 40th birthday. And I go, and then it made me remember another memory, and I go there, which made me think of another memory. I go there, and then I have to make myself come back to the original story that I'm trying to tell. And then it leads to another memory, and I still haven't finished it, because this thing is happening. And with Empanada, I was like, all right, just go there. And now I'm a little harder on myself of like, all right, yes, go there with those memories, but I can't avoid the thing that I'm trying to, the one story that I'm making myself come back to it. Because if I don't finish that, then that's something around here that's trying to possibly avoid. But I like the way you're talking about it, which is connecting. And I need to speak in a positively sense to myself, so that I don't judge how my process has been so far. So you've helped me with what you just said.
Good. And I want to say something to Jasmine too. I think the reason that I love solo performance is that it is so much about the person and their experience. It's really a human experience that is being told, and that to me is just so valuable. And thank you, Alex, because I think before our Logan Festival, I didn't know how much I loved it. But now
Mm,
I
I
really am.
love to hear that.
So thank you, Juan.
For sharing that, Eileen. I actually want to respond to what you just said about it being about a person's experience, because JJ's not on the call anymore, but I had a meeting with JJ and Juan at many months ago near the beginning of this, and the script felt really clear to me. I was going to tell all these other people's stories, and they were like, "And where are you? Where's your voice?" And I was like, "Oh no, I'm not in this. I'm not in this. This is other people." And actually, when I started to open myself to the possibility of my perspective as a working person, the script came alive to me in a better way. Like I like feel more strongly connected to it, because I've known that I'm a working person for a long time, but I had not put myself, my narrative wasn't necessarily in it at the beginning. I thought I was going to write about other people. And then when they asked me that, I was like, well, I don't know. And I wasn't sure. So I literally was like, I just started to write to see what I might have to say. And then I realized that, oh, well, you know, my dad's a working person. He's a retired union guy. And he was one of the few Latinos that got into the union when he got into the union. So then I started interviewing my dad, which led me to interview this wonderful Puerto Rican who was very involved at the time in Chicago in the 70s, at getting the union open for Latino and Blacks to be able to enter the union, which was very strictly, you know, Irish and Polish at the time. Very strong racial lines here in Chicago that were happening at that time. It just like opened up all of this stuff because I went to the personal. I had not thought to ask myself questions. I was excited to talk to other people. Juan. So I am grateful. And then Alex and Dee said the same thing. They had me going down that same trajectory of questioning self, and that, you know, there's still so much to figure out, because there's tons of pages that are not in the script that are just in my files, of figuring out like how to really weave all of those things together in an intelligent way, where it's not just like, you know, but that it's curated, and there's a lot that won't fit in you know, I don't want to ask people to sit around and listen to one person talk for 3 hours. They'll leave. So it's like, what are the pieces that actually have to be in there? What are the parts of the story that are most important to telling this story? And it is, and the fact that I had not brought myself to the table at the beginning of it was really funny to me now to look back. And I'm grateful to Juan and JJ and Dee. Oh, and Frank was on that call. I think Frank, you were in that call too. So I'm really grateful to our artists to have had time with each other. It was also a huge gift in this commissioned experience to have each other.
Yeah.
There's a teacher that I have. She actually is in Chicago. You may know her. And she says, the flood is the fact, Noah and the ark are the story.
I love it. That's great. I'm so grateful for all of you who have been our artists who have been at work over this last year and continue to be at work, I should say too. And all of you either in this room with us today or who are watching this on recording in the future. This has been, these commissions, these first looks have been such a important part of my life over the last 18 months, as we are unable to be together, to be able to create and be with the artist and to share the artist with the audience in whatever way we could, has been so deeply gratifying. I know the question I get all the time is, when are we going to see these up and running? And I don't have the answer yet, but what I can say is we're up and running at First Stage again. We're talking about Logan Festival again. Many of you know that we did Logan Festival outdoors this summer and fall. It remains a deeply important part of First Stage and who we are. So we are we are asking the same questions you are, of how to get these stories told and in front of you all, and hope to have news about that in the coming months. But so stay with us, come back to First Stage if you're comfortable, join us. We're still have these virtual events. And I really, I joked about it at the beginning of this, but I have to say that, you know, as an artistic director, the greatest gift you can have is the ability to sort of dream big and believe there are people who will help you achieve it. And when we started this process of dreaming big, I called Deirdre and I said, so hear me out before I say this, and just started talking about the commission and what we might be able to do. And I said, we don't know where the money's coming from. We don't know when we're going to be up again. These folks are all over the place. And Deirdre said, yeah, I've got a list started. And from that day forward, has been such a incredible force of making these works happen, of making these conversations happen. So thank you, Deirdre, for all that you do for us and for the great nurturer of these works. We look forward to showing you all what's next. So stay tuned. Thank you, our friends, Frank, Jasmine, Juan, Natsu, and all the folks who are working at weddings around the country today. You can always find out more about the commissions at firststage.org and everything that we're doing. Thank you all for joining us this Saturday afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.